Every day is a gift. Every day is a gift. And if you actually believe that, you'll live your life differently. It's a privilege to love people. It's a privilege to show up. It's a privilege to have this conversation. And if you actually believe that, there's so much meaning behind it. It doesn't become a chore.
Welcome to Journeys Through Change, a podcast that inspires women to let go of the fear and say yes to possibility. I'm your host, Noelle Van, an author, creator, and empowerment coach who spent years in corporate America helping innovators and leaders ride the waves of change with ease and grace. I now work with women to step into change and unleash the power they have to create a life they love. Whether you're contemplating a change in your career, relationship, health, lifestyle, or anything in between, nothing's off the table. I'll be offering up simple insights to help you manage the ups and downs of change and sharing interviews with successful women who took a leap of faith to create the life they knew they were meant to live, sharing their wisdom, advice, and all the juicy lessons they learned along the way. So get cozy in your favorite comfy chair and let's get started. Christine Handy was in the midst of living her dreams with a successful modeling career and growing family when unexpected medical issues entered the picture and took a horrendous turn for the worse, as she was diagnosed with an aggressive form of breast cancer in 2012. Through these trying times of undergoing 28 rounds of chemotherapy and a double mastectomy, her trust in God and eventual healing has made her stronger than ever, opening her eyes to a new passion in life, sharing her story of hope, and helping others. Christine is a mother of two, breast cancer survivor, fashion model, international speaker, best-selling author, film producer, and nationally recognized humanitarian. Her motto is, "There is always purpose in pain, but we have to be willing to share the story." And she's done just that. Her New York Times bestselling book, Walk Beside Me, was published in 2017 and is currently being adapted into a film titled Hello Beautiful, depicting her story with a purpose of creating further dialogue on a devastating disease that affects 1 in 8 women in the U.S. alone. Christine credits her inspirational journey for leading her to embrace her self-esteem, devotion to God, and the value of friendship. Christine, I am so honored to have you here with us today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
So, Christine, I don't even know where to start with you because there's so many facets to your story. But what I thought we might do is just start maybe at the point before you had, I understand that there was health issues that then led to a diagnosis. So maybe you could walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so that's a whole couple other podcasts. But when I was 28, I had a minor form of skin cancer on my face. And again, I just want to reiterate, I started modeling when I was 11. So I had a scar on my face. And the fact that somebody said to me at 28, I have skin cancer was alarming, to say the least. Subsequent to that, I had, when I was 35 years old in 2006, I had a colon resection, which was a routine major surgery. So it was scheduled. It wasn't an emergency. And unfortunately, the very kind doctor nicked a vein in one of my bones during surgery, and I almost bled to death on the table because he didn't want to cut me wide open to find out where the source of the bleeding was from because I was still doing lingerie and bathing suit modeling. And I had said to him before the surgery, I was like, "Now, are we sure we're going to do this orthoscopically?" And he was like, "Absolutely." So I ultimately put pressure on him, right, to do a very meticulous, beautiful scar. And when there was an error and when there was a problem, he had to cut me from hip to hip in a unclean, unnatural way. And so the scar was very jagged. It was very unsightly. So that was like my second one. Well, my first brush with death, but it was also my second hit with, you know what? Maybe this whole external beauty thing isn't as important as you think it should be. But that still didn't change me. So then in 2011, my third major surgery was, so I had an arm infection, which ultimately led to the fusion of my right arm. It's a very complicated story. Again, we would have to be here for hours. The best way to describe this is to pick up my book. Most people have righteous anger about reading about my arm. It's a very sad story. It's very troubling. It talks a lot about our medical system and how the God complex comes into so many surgeons. And for a shorter version, I was misdiagnosed with the infection and bullied by this doctor. And that goes back to the self-esteem issue because I was so focused on the external. I was so focused on the beauty and external accolades that I was not so concerned with being kind of fierce in my own self-care and self-love. So when the doctor started bullying me, I thought, well, gosh, he has the medical degree. I don't. So maybe he's telling me the truth, and maybe my internal suspicions are not right. So that was kind of the third major shift that should have really just knocked me into, you know what? You should not care so much about the external facade. Well, that didn't work either. So then
think about this. This is that takes more than just, looking back on it, obviously these were pivotal moments, right? But
very pivotal, but I wasn't pivoting. Obviously I had major whispers of you know what? There are things that are translating into my life that I should be paying attention to. And don't get me wrong, the pain and the duress of all of those things was great. But when I healed, I moved on. I moved back into the modeling space. I moved back into this picture perfect life that I was portraying to the world, which didn't really exist. But that's what I wanted to show the world. And I had a lot of shame in my life because my life wasn't perfect. And I thought, if it's not perfect, then people won't love me. But that's a self-esteem issue. So moving on to 2012, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, my whole life stopped. Most people's life stops with a cancer diagnosis. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I thought, okay, I have no value because my beauty is stolen. It's going to be gone, and I'm never going to recover from this. That was what I told myself for the first few weeks of my diagnosis. Of course, all of those things were lies. They were lies that I fed myself for years and years and years, and it was just exasperated with the diagnosis. And so once I vocalized those lies to friends and family, people would say to me, we're not here because we want something from you. This relationship is not transactional. We're not here because you were this beautiful model and you were successful and you had this picture perfect family. We're here because we love you. So let's start taking a look at who that person is inside. And so I started to do a lot of introspection. And it took me the 15 months that I was going through chemo to figure out, you know what? The bags, the jewelry, the external beauty. I was bald and I had no hair and I had no, my breasts were cut up and excavated. My breast tissue was excavated and I never felt better about myself. And that's a huge transformation,
It's almost like you were catapulted into something very different. You had the health issues up to there. And like you said, you were giving yourself certain, there were certain messages going through your mind about, this is going to affect my outer beauty but to really have that hit you. And was this around the time too? I know you speak a lot about having friends that were super supportive. So is that around the time that kind of your spirituality began to grow and you widened community around you?
I always knew God. I was raised Catholic and I always knew that there was a God, but I didn't have such a personal relationship with him. And when I was going through chemo, there were many nights and many days where I was on the floor begging for mercy from the volatility of the chemotherapy in my body. I was so sick. I was violently ill from the chemotherapy. And there were a few nights where I wasn't sure I was going to wake up the next morning. And I can tell you that my doctor wasn't sure. My family wasn't sure. And they weren't consecutive nights. It was one in February of 2013, one in March, one in April. At that point, I had realized that, you know what? I had to give up on the outcome. I couldn't meditate on the outcome. I couldn't meditate on whether I was going to live or die. I had to just focus on today. I had to stay present in the courage of this moment. And so that was another huge lesson in my life, because so often we live our lives not from day to day, but from this next season is going to be better because fill in the blank. Or this season isn't as great because I don't have this X, Y, and Z yet. That translates into a big roller coaster. That's how you live in fear. If you base your life on faith, you take each day, his grace is enough for you today. You let go of some of that fear because you're not so fixated on the outcome. By not fixating on the outcome, you can show courage in a different way. So every single day that I wake up and I share my story of courage, that's like a wave effect to the world, right? People can borrow that courage. They can borrow me modeling that courage. And so that's the goal. But if I was fixated on, okay, well, I'm just using this as random example. I want to be a TED speaker. And so I need to do certain amount of speeches and I need to get certain amount of interviews. I could care less. All I care about is inspiring people. And so I'm not fixated on the outcome.
I mean, when you think about how quickly that can bring focus into what's important, when I was looking through your bio and I saw that you went through 28 rounds. Okay. The first thing I thought of was like, how can a body take that? Because you think of one round of chemotherapy, right, as being, so was this like a month? Was this throughout a course of several years? Oh my God.
Every week. Yeah, once a week. So my doctor, my oncologist described it like a metronome. So he wanted the cancer to combat the cancer like this, like just knock it really hard every week, like a metronome on a piano.
Yeah.
It was obviously a very troubling time of my life, but also it was a pause, right? And not all pauses are bad. It gave me an opportunity to react in a way that I had not reacted before. It gave me an opportunity to say to myself, okay, this is how I lived prior to this. If I survive, how am I going to move forward? And it really was a choice. I didn't want to live another day without Jesus. I didn't want to live another day without being completely dependent on God. My measure is not society. My measure is not if my book is successful. My measure is not if my book becomes a film. My measure is not if I make a lot of money. My measure is not if my hair is beautiful. My measure is with God. And so anytime I make a major decision, I speak to God first. Every night I say to God, did I do enough today? Have I inspired? Have I given people hope? And that's how I measure my life. That's very different than what culture teaches us to do.
So much less complicated, right?
It's not that I don't have any fears. It's not that I don't have any difficulties. No. I have a mountain of stress.
Yeah.
But I handle it in a different way.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that your listeners know this. It takes a long time to get where I am. It doesn't happen overnight and it doesn't stay that way. You have to constantly work on your self-esteem. You have to constantly ask yourself, what am I saying to myself? Am I calling myself a winner? Am I being a vine or a victim? Am I telling myself I'm lovable? Am I telling myself I am worthy? Or am I telling my own self I'm not worth being loved? Those are questions you have to ask yourself. And I ask myself those on a consistent basis because our self-esteem can get muddled really quickly in this world. All you have to do is turn on the news. And it's so fear-based. And so I limit what I watch. I limit what I listen to. I almost won't ever listen to secular music anymore. Because if I'm not listening to faith-based music, I can tell from my spirit and my soul that I get a little bit unraveled. And it's the same with podcasts and what I listen to, when I'm walking or when I'm watching on TV. If I have the news in the background while I'm working, or if I have faith-based music on the background, I'm a different person by 3:00.
Yeah.
If it's the news, I'm edgy and I'm scared and I'm uncertain. If faith-based music, I have this different spirit about myself. I have this calm. My stressors are the same, regardless.
And I think you bring up a really important thing that once you become more in tune with that sort of inner compass of you understand energetically how things will affect you. As I've gotten older, I do the same thing. It's like, nope, not going to let that through. If I spend an hour and I have that going on in the background, I'm going to feel that. It's a subtle thing, but when you can start to really protect yourself in that way, it makes things a lot less dramatic. And also you don't feel like you're recuperating from things in your life versus helping to direct yourself to move forward in a positive and healthy way.
Right.
Let me ask you this, Christine. So you have 2 boys.
Yes, 2 sons, yes.
Now, this is going on. How old were your boys at the time that you were diagnosed and you were going through all of this?
They were 11 and 13. One of my sons was in boarding school and one of my sons is at home. And, in hindsight, I thought at the time that by not bringing my son home from boarding school, I was helping him. But I don't think I really was. I think he was more afraid because he was far away and he wasn't seeing it every day. Mm-hmm. I thought the opposite. I thought he doesn't have to see this every day. Now, in hindsight, I think I probably would have done that differently. But, we do with what we can with the information we have.
Absolutely. So this is all taking place. You then go into remission. Was that?
So that's a word that I don't like.
Oh, okay.
It's not my favorite word.
Okay.
I feel like a more positive messages is from the date of my last chemo, I became cancer free. My malignancy was gone. My tumor was gone. My chemo was completed. I started on my cancer free journey. Now, people have different language for that. For me, I find that the definition of remission is that it's actually still in your body, it's just being suppressed.
Yeah.
So the messaging for me is different. So I've been cancer free since December 3rd of 2013. I just celebrated my 10-year cancer free last Sunday.
Congratulations. That is
Thank
amazing.
you. Yeah, that is amazing, actually.
Oh my God. And I was going to say, and the amount of work that you have done since that point in time. So can you kind of describe to us, what was the shift? I know you had this internal shift inside, right? Where you had a lot recognition about a lot of things, but what made you decide, okay, I'm going to pivot here and I'm going to help other people, and how am I going to do that and all that?
So when I came out of this journey, that season of my life, I devoted my life to serving. And I used every platform that I was on to do that. So I was a model for 30 years before I was diagnosed with cancer. I went back to modeling as a breastless model to show that my beauty was not dissected because I lost my chest. I used that platform to give people hope. Then I used my creative ability to write a book about my breast cancer journey, because when I was going through breast cancer, I searched out books with a fictional depiction of stories about breast cancer. I was gifted a lot of beautiful faith-based book and self-help books and things like that, which I used. But to actually read about somebody's story, the good, the bad, the ugly, I wanted to read that. I couldn't find it, so I wrote it. And I hoped that that could help somebody. Then after my book was published, I started to become a speaker, and I thought, isn't this interesting? I've been a model my whole life. I've been in front of a camera my whole life. Maybe that was pruning me to be in front of a camera to speak on a bigger platform about hope. I use that familiarity and the ability to be in front of a camera with no fear as a platform to speak, right? Became a public speaker. Then I started to use my resources, because I really didn't have to work to become a mentor to other breast cancer patients. Then I started to use my resources to get on boards of breast cancer nonprofits, but also in other ways to serve. For example, I speak in the prison system in the state of Florida, just for men, by the way. Mm-hmm. I've never spoken in a prison system for women, which is ironic because my book is so much about women empowerment. But regardless, that's where I was planted. And so I was in this particular prison about 3 times. And one of the prisoner, when he got out of jail, his name is William Freeman. He messaged me on Facebook. I don't do a lot of Facebook, but I happened to see that message. I messaged him back. He asked if he could meet with me. I messaged him back and I said, well, it's a bit of a drive. It was a couple hour distance. I said, but when I get some time, I'll meet with you. We ended up meeting at a pizza place. He showed up in a red suit, like a red jacket, a red shirt, red pants, and a briefcase. And by the way, as an aside, the people in my life said to me, you know what? I'm not so sure I would do that. That man was in prison for 30 some odd years. I'd be very careful. I would, please send us your destination. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not living my life in fear, and I'm not living in judgment.
Yeah.
So I met with him. We had a wonderful meeting. This has been 5 years. We started a nonprofit called the People of Purpose.
Christine, that's awesome.
And so we do prison ministry. He and we have a board of directors, and we have this great organization. We've helped countless amount of people. The recidivism rate in Palm Beach County, which is where he is based, was 97%. That's unacceptable.
Right.
We, because of our interaction, and also other people are helping in that community as well. It's not just, I'm not saying it's us. Because of enormous outcry of people that are helping that situation, it's down to 93%. That's a major jump.
Oh my God.
So anyway, my point is, from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I say to myself, how can I serve? I'm lucky enough to do it. Now, currently, my book is being translated into a film called Hello, Beautiful, which is set to start filming January 9th in Boston, Massachusetts.
Very exciting.
It is.
Just because it's spreading it wider, right? You're
it's a bigger platform.
The reach. Absolutely.
It's a bigger platform. And it's a hopeful story. So that's the goal. It's all about serving. By the way, anybody can do that. Everybody can serve at their office. Everybody can serve at the airport, waiting in line to get on a plane. Everybody can serve walking out the door. They can. I live in a building. We can serve with the people that we work in the same community. If that's your focus, you can change your life.
Well, and I think like you are a prime example too of when you said looking back on your life. I got a chill when you said this. You said looking back on your life and you think about, you weren't uncomfortable in front of a camera. You could easily get out. It's almost like you have been sort of groomed into throughout your life. And the fact that you thought it was going to be one thing and now this is what it is. I mean, that's just mind blowing to me. Just looking at what you have done, and we're going to get to your going back to Harvard in a moment because I just find you fascinating.
That's a crazy story.
When will this train stop? But truly, though, I just have to say, I not only commend you, but I know what you're saying. It's a driving force. It's not like I'm doing this because, this is going to be, we're going to put a film out there and this is going to, it's everything that is the engine behind your purpose is important and worthy and profound. And it just feels really like you're
on a mission.
You are on a mission. Yes.
Well, and I'm a facilitator. None of it is about me. I wish that I had seen somebody in my journey when I was going through breast cancer that was giving hope. I didn't see that. I saw a lot of fear. And I asked one woman one time who I was going through breast cancer, and she was a friend of mine's mother. She had already completed her chemo. And I said, and she was many years out. I said, when do you stop being afraid? And she was 10 years out at the time. And she said, I'll let you know. I didn't want to be that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to show people that I wasn't that so I could be a light.
And you are.
There's a difference between being a victim and a vine. I was a victim for many years. I'm trying to make up the time by being a vine.
Now, when you say you were a victim for many years, was there a pivotal moment that you recall when you made the decision not to be?
Well, I just didn't understand the difference. Nobody would blame me for being angry about what the doctor did to my arm. I live in chronic pain. Nobody would be surprised if I had some angst and fear in my life because I'd already been diagnosed with cancer and I have no chest. I have a concave chest, and that doesn't get me anywhere. That doesn't help me. And I guess in my life prior to cancer, I thought, well, maybe if I feel sorry for myself, maybe somebody else will give me some attention, I guess. I don't know exactly because I'm so different now.
Yeah.
I don't need anybody's attention. I need God. I don't need any external accolades. I need God.
There's a maturity in that as well, right? There's an experiential component to that you've been through a lot, and you've been through not the ups and downs of life so much as life or death. That puts things into very, very clear perspective very quickly.
Every day is a gift. Every day is a gift. And if you actually believe that, you'll live your life differently. It's a privilege to love people. It's a privilege to show up. It's a privilege to have this conversation. And if you actually believe that, there's so much meaning behind it. It doesn't become a chore.
I love your perspective, Christine. I needed to hear this from you today. It's always perfect timing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, but we need to talk about Harvard just because I think I was going through your bio and then I just started laughing. I was like, okay, Christine, when is she going to stop? So tell me more about this. You have your degree now, right? You went back for your master's.
Yes, I have a master's from Harvard. After my chemotherapy, I was really frustrated because I had terrible chemo brain. I literally would drive down the street. And if I was making a left or a right, I wasn't sure what side of the street to turn on. Because my brain was forgetting. My short-term memory was, I don't even know how to describe it. It was almost, there was nothing. And I was embarrassed. And I felt shame about that. And I was afraid to ask people because I thought they would think I was crazy. And anytime I asked a doctor about it, they were like, oh, it'll go away. It's just going to take years. And I was like, I don't want to wait years. I have kids to drive. I have a life to live. I have to move on from this. And so the only way I could figure out how to move on from that was not to do puzzles, was not to do jigsaw puzzles, was not to do crossword puzzles. I think that would have helped, but I needed something intense. And so I applied to Harvard. I applied to their creative writing and literature program to get a master's. And I thought, you know what? I'm not sure anybody's going to have to work as hard as me. I had to read books and books and books and write and write and write. And each book that I was reading, I was going over pages that over and over the same page because my short-term memory was lost. But once I started to get through maybe the second semester, maybe year 2, my brain started to get intact. I started to retrain my brain. My brain was working like a normal person again. That was year 2. I can't tell you how frustrated I was for an entire year. And I'm not saying year 2 or 3 or 4 was easy, but it was easier because I was retraining my brain. And guess what? It worked. Here's the thing. I had to have the self-esteem to know that if I applied to Harvard and they said no, it didn't affect me.
Right.
If you don't try, you will never succeed. But if you try and they say no, it's a win because you tried. So that's one. The second thing was I had no idea how I was going to get through the curriculum. I hadn't been in school in years and I had chemo brain, but I had faith. I knew it would work out. I didn't know how. And I also had the time. I was separated and then I was going through a divorce. I had all the time in the world. We can fill our time with so many things. But if you take away partying, social life, shopping, all of those things, you got a lot of time. So I just filled my time with work. I filled my time with working. I filled my time with serving, and I filled my time with school. 10 hours a day, that's all I did. And then I would go to bed at night and I'd wake up and do the same thing for years.
Wow.
I had no social life and it was fine because I was working on myself. But there came a time where I integrated a social life because I'd done what I aspired to do. That's the thing people forget. They think if one season is in their life, it's going to go on forever. Seasons come and go. That season of my life was short, but it was masterful and it was important. And now I'm in a different season of my life.
Christine, you are just such a testament to, you just have a lot of strength. You do. And you can tell that this has been born from a lot of just going through a lot. And I feel like anybody listening to you, because that's the thing I want, and we're going to share all of Christine's links in the show notes and everything. So if people want to, well, it's a long read because there's a lot going on. But if you want to get to know Christine and see what fine work she's doing, because you're everywhere and it's really amazing. But I feel like you are such an inspiration, not only to someone who might be going through that right now, might be kind of in the muck of it. What you're saying is it's not like this was a walk in the park.
No.
This took time. This took energy. This took dedication to yourself. This took getting over some of the stuff that we all have to deal with and we all have going through our minds. Like you said, you're not immune to it. We all go back to a day of low self-esteem every so often. It's the way we were wired. And so I just think that you're a treasure. And I'm so happy that you were able to meet with us because I know that you do not have a ton of time. Let's quickly so the film is in January. When is it going to be out so people will see this? Is it next year maybe?
Hopefully or sooner than that. I mean, well, in 2024 for sure, because it starts January of 2024, but sometime in 2024, it will be somewhere.
Okay. But we know that it's Hello Beautiful.
It's called Hello Beautiful. And the director is Ziad Hamza, and he's an amazing human being. We've been working on this project for 5 years. And let me tell you, grit and determination should be my middle names because so many times this project was dead. We resurrected it because I knew that, Hollywood portrays cancer or illness in general and film ends with a funeral. That's just what they do. Mm-hmm. It's a sad story. It's a very dramatic story. And then at the end, there's a funeral. And I had righteous anger that was not acceptable. Mm-hmm. There are so many percentages of people that survive cancer. We need a film that shows that hope. We need a film that does not end in a funeral and ends in hope and ends in a love story because that exists. And so that is my only reason for doing this film. It is my only reason to serve in this way. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to showcase how life goes on. That's the other thing. If you watch me on social media, I try to show my life every day because I want to show what thriving looks like. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I thought, how am I going to even get through the day moving forward? I have this scarlet letter of cancer. I have no chest. I have scarred up on my arm and my face and my chest and all these things. And I was like, oh no, I'm not going to live like that. I'm going to shoot for the moon. I'm going to Harvard. I'm going to write a book. Everything that I thought I couldn't do, I said, I'm going to try. And I've accomplished more So you don't have to survive, you can thrive.
I love when you just said before that if you didn't get into Harvard, okay.
I would have gotten it somewhere.
Exactly. And our failures are what make us stronger. I think it doesn't intuitively feel right at the time. Sometimes when things like that happen, when you're like, but this is horrible. I'm a failure.
Yeah.
It's like, no, these are the building blocks to get you where you need to go.
Your language has to change too. You go, I'm a failure. We're never a failure. Sometimes things fail. We
Yes.
are never a failure.
Yes. I love that. Okay. Can you just come over to my house and we'll hang out? Because you're so inspiring. And you're fun to watch because there's a lot going on. And I know there's so much more to come.
There's a lot to come. There's so much more to come. I'm like a hamster on the wheel. I'm just going to keep going.
But you know what? Hey, it's the energy. You're the energy bunny, right? They say the Energizer bunny. But that's actually, it's all generated from such good stuff. And what's so beautiful about that is that you're spreading it. It's coming from you, but you are reaching people. And that's what it's all about, right?
Thank you. Thank you for that acknowledgement. Thank you. That encourages me.
We're going to stay in touch because seriously, within the next 5 years, I'm going to have a whole nother sheet of things to talk about.
I hope so. All
right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Of course. My pleasure.
Thanks for joining us. Okay. Well, that's it for now. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Journeys Through Change podcast. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or really wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us and leave a review if you've enjoyed this episode. And share it with a friend or on social media to spread the good word, so more women like you can find us and join in on the fun. For more information on the podcast or Day by Day book, go to livedaybyday.com.